My name is Grace Whitaker. I'm 29 years old. And for most of my life, my family treated me like the dependable one. Not special. Not dazzling. Not the person everyone turned to when they wanted a room to light up. Dépendable. The one who showed up early to help set tables at Thanksgiving. The one who stayed late to clean the kitchen while everyone else laughed in the living room. The one who gave rides to the airport, helped cousins move apartments, remembered birthdays, fixed printers, watched dogs, and never asked for much in return. My cousin Madison was the opposite. Madison was 27. Pretty in that effortless way that made older relatives forgive her before she even apologized. She had a quick smile, bright eyes, and the kind of confidence that made people believe her version of events, even when the facts were lying in pieces right in front of them. Our mothers were sisters. So Madison and I grew up almost like siblings. Summers at our grandmother's house. Christmas mornings in matching pajamas. Family barbecues where everyone said, "Those two are inseparable." But even when we were kids, there was a difference between us. If Madison broke something, someone laughed and called her spirited. If I broke something, I apologized until my throat hurt. If Madison forgot a responsibility, she was busy. If I forgot one, people acted like the earth had shifted off its axis. So when Madison called me 3 months ago and asked to borrow my car, I should have heard every alarm bell. Her car was in the shop. Transmission problème, she said. She needed to drive about 2 hours away for the weekend to visit her boyfriend. "Tyler, please." "Grace," she said, stretching my name like we were still 12 years old and sharing popsicles on Grandma's porch. "It's just 2 days. I'll bring it back Sunday night. Full tank. I promise." I looked out my apartment window at my 2019 Honda Accord, parked below. That car was not fancy, but it was mine. Certified, pre-owned. Bought after years of saving. Maintained with almost ridiculous care. Oil changes on time. Tir rotation. Brake checks. Receipts in a folder. I knew every little sound it made. "I don't know," I said. "I don't usually lend out my car." Madison laughed softly. "You sound like an old woman." "Maybe I am an old woman with a good credit score." "Come on. You're not even using it this weekend." That should have been the end of the conversation. It almost was. Then my aunt called, "Grace." "Honey," Aunt Paula said, voice warm, but already sharpened with expectation. "Madison really needs this. She's been so stressed lately. You know she'd do the same for you." I almost asked, "Would she?" But I didn't. Then my mother called too. "She's family." Mom said, "It's one weekend. Don't make this a bigger thing than it needs to be." That sentence would echo in my head later. Don't make this a bigger thing than it needs to be. As if I was the one who would make it bigger. As if the whole disaster had already chosen me as its landing place. So I said yes. When Madison came to pick up the car Friday evening, she arrived in oversized sunglasses, smelling like expensive perfume and iced coffee. She hugged me with one arm and held out her hand for the keys with the other. I didn't give them over right away. "Drive carefully," I said. "I'm serious. This car is my baby." She rolled her eyes, smiling. "Relax. I'm a great driver. I've never even had a ticket." That was a lie. I didn't know it then. I only remember the way she said it so easily. Like truth was just another accessory she could put on when it matched the outfit. I handed her the keys. She slid into the driver's seat. adjusted the mirror, waved once, and pulled away from the curb. I watched the taillights disappear, and for one strange second, I felt like I had just handed her more than a car. Saturday evening, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. When I did, Madison's voice came through thin and shaky. "Grace." I stood up so fast, my knee hit the coffee table. "Madison, what happened?" "I'm at the hospital." The room seemed to tilt. She told me she had crashed my car. Totaled it. Wrapped it around a guardrail on the highway. My first question was, "Are you okay?" Because despite everything that happened after, that was still my first question. She had 2 injured wrists, bruising, and a mild concussion. It could have been much worse. My second question was quieter. "What happened?" There was a pause. Then she said, "The brakes failed." I closed my eyes, not because I believed her, because I knew my brakes were fine. The car had been serviced 3 weeks earlier. Full inspection. The brake pads were still good. The fluid was clean. I had paperwork proving it, but the way Madison said it, breathless, helpless, wounded, I knew exactly where this was going. She wasn't just explaining, she was building a story. And what Madison didn't know was that my car had a dash cam, dual-facing, front camera and interior camera. Audio. Cloud backup. I had installed it 2 years earlier, after a minor accident turned into a ridiculous argument about who changed lanes first. Best $200 I ever spent. That little camera captured everything. What actually happened was simple. Madison was driving 87 in a 65. She was texting. The interior camera showed her looking down again and again. Her thumbs moving. Her attention flickering between the road and her phone, like the highway was an inconvenience. When traffic slowed ahead, she noticed too late. She slammed on the brakes. They worked, but speed does not forgive arrogance. The car jerked, swerved, missed one vehicle by inches. And then, Madison lost control. The brakes did not fail. Her judgment did. I didn't tell her about the dashcam right away. Maybe that sounds cold. Maybe it was. But something in me went still after that phone call. Some deeper instinct whispered, "Wait. Watch what she does next." Because I knew Madison, I knew that if the truth helped her, she would use it. And if a lie helped her more, she would use that instead. The next few weeks were chaos. My car was totaled. Insurance valued it at $18,500. I spent hours on calls, filling out forms, sending documents, answering questions that made my stomach twist. Then, my insurance company called with a different tone. "Ms. Whitaker," the adjuster said, "we need to investigate further. Your cousin is claiming brake failure." The brakes were fine. I said, "I have service records." "She is also stating that you knew there were issues with the vehicle and failed to disclose them." For a second, I couldn't speak. She said, "What?" The adjuster repeated it. Professional and calm. Like she hadn't just told me my cousin was trying to shove me under the wreckage with my own car. Madison was claiming she had been an authorized driver and that the accident happened because I negligently maintained the vehicle. She wanted my insurance to cover her medical bills around $12,000, and there were hints that she might pursue more for pain and suffering. I remember standing in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the folder of service receipts on my counter. 3 weeks earlier, I had paid for a full inspection. 3 weeks. And now my cousin was telling people I had knowingly handed her a dangerous car. That night, I called a lawyer. His name was Daniel Mercer. An old family friend who handled auto claims and personal injury cases. I sent him everything: the service records, the insurance emails, and finally, the dashcam footage. He called me back after watching it. His voice was flat. "Grace, your cousin is trying to commit insurance fraud. I sat down slowly, and she's setting you up to take the fall." Outside my window, the parking lot was quiet. My empty parking space looked like a missing tooth. I thought about Madison smiling as she took my keys. "Relax. I'm a great driver." I thought about my mother saying, "She's family." And, for the first time, I understood something that made my chest go cold. Family pressure had gotten me into this, but truth was going to be the only thing that got me out. The first lawsuit arrived on a Tuesday morning. I remember because I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when someone knocked on my apartment door. When I opened it, a man in a gray jacket handed me a thick envelope and asked me to confirm my identity. The moment I saw the legal stamp on the front, my stomach dropped. "Grace Whitaker. Yes, you've been served." Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. No drama. No warning. One envelope. One signature. One cousin willing to burn down an entire family to avoid admitting she made a mistake. I carried the papers inside and sat at my kitchen table. The lawsuit was worse than I expected. Madison wasn't just seeking reimbursement for medical expenses anymore. She was suing me personally for $45,000. Medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, emotional distress. The complaint claimed I had negligently maintained my vehicle. It alleged I knowingly allowed her to drive a dangerous automobile. It even stated that I had verbally assured her the car was completely safe despite supposedly knowing there were brake issues. I read the document 3 times. Each time my hand shook harder. Not because I was afraid of losing, because of how casually she lied. Every paragraph felt like reading a story written by someone who had never met me. By lunchtime, I was sitting across from Daniel Mercer in his office. He flipped through the complaint and snorted. "That's bold. Bold. Grace. She's accusing you of things she can't possibly prove. She doesn't need to prove them if she ruins my life first." Daniel looked up. "That's exactly why we're not letting this go unanswered." For the next hour, we built our response. Every service record, every inspection receipt, every maintenance invoice, and most importantly, the dashcam footage. Daniel watched the video again while taking notes. The front camera showed Madison flying down the highway. The interior camera showed her repeatedly looking down at her phone. At one point she was typing with both thumbs, at 87 miles per hour. I felt sick every time I watched it. "She's dead in the water." Daniel finally said, "Then why am I terrified?" "Because facts and emotions aren't the same thing. Legally, you're in great shape. Emotionally, your family is about to become a war zone." He turned out to be right. That night, my aunt called. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello." Her voice sounded strained. "Grace. Sweetheart." I already knew I wasn't going to like whatever came next. "I know this looks bad." I laughed. Actually laughed. Because those were the exact words people always used before saying something ridiculous. "This looks bad. Madison is in so much pain. She crashed my car. She could have died. She was texting." Silence. "Then, you weren't there." My jaw tightened. "No," I said. "But my dash cam was..." Another silence. Longer this time. "What?" "I have video." "Aunt Paula." The line went quiet. "Everything is recorded." No answer. The speed. Silence. The texting. Nothing. The entire accident. The silence became so complete, I wondered if the call had disconnected. Then she whispered, "You have video." "Yes." More silence. And then, click. She hung up. 20 minutes later, Madison called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message came through immediately. Grace. Hey. Listen. We need to talk. Her voice sounded nervous, different, less confident. I heard something about video footage. How's it? Maybe we can work something out. I deleted the voicemail. I had no interest in negotiating with someone who was actively suing me. The next day, my mother showed up at my apartment. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slumped. Like she hadn't slept? Your aunt is losing her mind. I opened the door wider. Mom, Madison is suing me. She says she's desperate. She lied. She says the brakes failed. They didn't. Mom rubbed her temples. Maybe you could settle. I stared at her. For a moment, I genuinely thought I had misheard. Settle. Just enough to make it go away. You want me to pay her? No. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Mom looked away. The answer was written all over her face. Peace. She wanted peace. She didn't care what it cost. Family matters more than money. She finally said. I felt something crack inside me. Does it? Her eyes widened. Grace. Because Madison clearly doesn't think so. Silence. She sued me. More silence. She lied. Mom looked down. She shouldn't have done that. No. I said quietly. She shouldn't have. That conversation changed something between us. Not permanently, but enough, for the first time. My mother stopped defending Madison. She didn't support me openly yet, but she stopped pretending both sides were equally responsible. Meanwhile, Daniel filed our formal response. Every allegation denied. Every claim challenged. And then came the part that made Madison panic. We filed a countersuit. If she wanted court, she was getting court. The value of my totaled Honda Accord, $18,500. Property damage caused by her reckless driving. When Madison's attorney requested evidence during discovery, Daniel sent everything, including the dashcam footage. 2 days later, something hilarious happened. Madison fired her lawyer. Completely. Just fired him. At first, nobody knew why. Then, mutual friends started talking. Apparently, the attorney had watched the video and delivered news Madison didn't want to hear. You have no case. Drop the lawsuit. Immediately. Instead, Madison fired him and hired someone else. Someone much more willing to tell her what she wanted to hear. That decision would become one of the most expensive mistakes of her life. Around the same time, my insurance company completed its investigation. The findings were devastating for Madison. First, service records confirmed my brakes had been inspected and certified functional 3 weeks before the crash. Second, the dashcam footage showed clear, distracted driving. Third, an accident reconstruction expert examined the vehicle. No brake failure, no defects, no evidence supporting Madison's claims. Fourth, the insurance company pulled her driving history. That was when I learned something interesting. Madison had lied about more than the accident. Remember when she told me she'd never had a ticket? Turns out, she'd received 3 speeding tickets in 2 years. 3. There was also a previous at-fault accident. Suddenly, the image of Madison as an unlucky victim became much harder to sell. A week later, she received the official denial letter. Insurance rejected her claim completely. Not partially, completely. Then came the second blow. The company informed her they would pursue recovery of the $18,500 payout they had made on my totaled vehicle. Subrogation. A word Madison probably hadn't known. Existed. A word she would come to hate. The fallout was immediate. 10 days later, someone began pounding on my apartment door. Hard, violent, relentless. I checked the peephole. Madison. It was 10 o'clock at night. Her face was red, her eyes wild. I opened the door, but kept the security chain attached. "What do you want? You need to stop this." I almost laughed. "Stop what?" "Your insurance company." "You mean the company investigating the fraud claim?" Her face twisted. "This isn't funny." "No, it isn't." "Call them." "I can't." "You can." "No. Madison, that's not how insurance works." She pointed at me. "This is all because of you." Something inside me snapped. "All because of me?" "Yes. You crashed my car. The brakes failed. I have video." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Her breathing grew heavier. "I was hurt. You caused the accident. You ruined everything." "No," I said calmly. "You did that yourself." For a second I thought she might cry. Instead, she got angry. Really angry. The kind of anger that appears when someone realizes the story they've been telling isn't working anymore. "You're dead to me." I blinked. "What?" "You heard me." Her voice shook. "You're dead to me." The words should have hurt. Instead, they felt strangely freeing. "Okay." That seemed to catch her off guard. "Okay. Okay." I shrugged. "Now leave before I call the police." Her face turned crimson. For one terrifying second, I thought she might force her way inside. Instead, she spun around and stormed off. But before reaching the stairs, she kicked my doorframe as hard as she could. The crack echoed through the hallway. Then she disappeared. I photographed the damage immediately. Sent it to Daniel. Added it to the growing file. Because by then, I was starting to understand something. This wasn't really about a car anymore. It wasn't even about money. Madison had built her entire life around one assumption: that someone else would always absorb the consequences. A parent, a boyfriend, a teacher, a family member, someone, and for the first time in her life, that wasn't happening. For the first time, the consequences were coming directly toward her, and she was terrified. I didn't know it yet. But the next phase of the battle was about to expose just how far she was willing to go to avoid accountability. 6 weeks later, the legal battle had spread through the family like a wildfire. Nobody could contain. By then, every holiday plan had become a negotiation. Every family gathering came with conditions. Every phone call carried tension. My aunt refused to speak to my mother. My mother spent most days trying to keep peace between two sides that no longer wanted peace. And my grandmother, 84 years old and completely overwhelmed, kept asking the same heartbreaking question: why is everyone fighting? Nobody knew how to answer her. How do you explain insurance fraud, lawsuits, and betrayal to a woman whose biggest concern was making sure everyone got enough pie at Thanksgiving? Meanwhile, in court, things were moving steadily in my favor. That didn't stop Madison from trying. Her new attorney filed a motion to dismiss my countersuit. The argument was almost laughable. Since Madison had been an authorized driver, they claimed she couldn't be held responsible for the damage to the vehicle. Daniel practically smiled when he read it. This won't survive 5 minutes. He was right. At the hearing, he dismantled the argument, piece by piece. Your Honor, Daniel said calmly, permission to drive a vehicle is not permission to operate it recklessly. The judge nodded. Daniel continued. Miss Whitaker authorized her cousin to use the car. She did not authorize speeding. She did not authorize texting while driving. She did not authorize negligent conduct that resulted in the vehicle being destroyed. Madison stared at the table. Her attorney tried to respond. It wasn't enough. Motion denied. Just like that. The case moved forward. Then came the depositions. If the motion hearing was a small victory, the depositions were a complete disaster for Madison. I wasn't present in the room when she testified, but Daniel recorded detailed notes and later walked me through everything. The image he painted was almost surreal. Madison arrived, confident, perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile, the same smile that had charmed teachers, relatives, and employers for years, the smile she always wore when she thought she could talk her way out of trouble. Unfortunately for her, evidence doesn't care about charm. Her attorney started gently. Madison, can you describe what happened before the accident? The brakes felt strange. When did you first notice that? Maybe 15 minutes before the crash. Daniel looked at me while recounting this part. She'd never mentioned 15 minutes before. Because it wasn't true. Exactly. Then our turn came. Daniel pulled up the dashcam footage. The giant monitor lit up. Madison's face reportedly changed the moment she saw it. Miss Carter, Daniel asked, is that your vehicle traveling at 87 miles per hour? I don't know. The answer was immediate. Too immediate. Daniel clicked another screen. GPS data appeared. The dashcam logs speed using satellite tracking. Silence. Would you like to revise your answer? Another silence. Yes? Were you traveling at 87 miles per hour? Yes. Strike one. Then came the phone. The interior footage played. Madison looking down again, then again, and again. 12 separate times, in less than 3 minutes. Were you using your phone? I was checking directions. Daniel nodded. Interesting. Then he produced phone records. Subpoenaed records. Time-stamped. Verified. Text messages were sent from your phone at 3:45 p.m. and 3:46 p.m. The accident occurred at 3:48 p.m. The room reportedly became very quiet. Who were you texting? Madison didn't answer. Daniel repeated the question. Still no answer. Then her attorney requested a break. 20 minutes. 20 full minutes. When everyone returned, Madison looked completely different. Her confidence had vanished. The smile was gone. Even her attorney seemed defeated. Yet somehow she kept pushing forward. Even if I was speeding a little, she said. The brakes should have worked. Daniel later told me he almost felt sorry for her at that moment. Almost. Can you describe how the brakes felt? They weren't responsive. Can you be more specific? No. Can you explain why the accident reconstruction expert found no brake failure? No. Can you explain why the mechanic who serviced the vehicle found no brake issues? No. Can you explain why the physical inspection found healthy brake pads, clean fluid, and functioning components? No. Every answer dug the hole deeper. Every answer made the story less believable. By the end of the deposition, even Madison seemed to realize she was losing. Then it was my turn. Compared to hers, my deposition felt simple. Yes. I loaned her the vehicle. Yes. I asked her to drive carefully. Yes. The car had been maintained properly. Yes. Here were the records. Yes. There was dashcam footage. No. There had never been any brake problems. No. I had never concealed any defects. No. I had never lied to anyone. Done. Afterward, Daniel seemed unusually optimistic. That's when I knew things were really going our way. A week later, Madison's attorney contacted him about a settlement. The proposal was almost insulting. Madison would voluntarily dismiss her lawsuit. In exchange, I would dismiss my countersuit and stop cooperating with the insurance company. Daniel laughed when he told me. Actually laughed. What did you say? I said no. Just no. Pretty much. I smiled for the first time in days. Good. Because at that point, it wasn't enough for Madison to simply walk away. She had already tried to destroy my reputation. She had already accused me of negligence. She had already cost me months of stress. Walking away wasn't accountability. It was escape. And she wanted escape more than anything. The pressure from the family intensified. One afternoon, my grandmother called. She almost never called anyone. When her name appeared on my phone, I immediately answered. "Grandma, hello." "Sweetheart." Her voice sounded fragile, older than I remembered. "How are you?" "Oh. You know." She paused. Then came the real reason for the call. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you trying to send Madison to prison?" I closed my eyes. There it was. The latest version of the story. The one being circulated by my aunt. "No. Grandma. Your aunt says prosecutors are involved. They are looking into the insurance claim. Can't you stop that?" "No." Silence. "I don't understand." "I know. You girls used to play together." My chest tightened. "I know. You used to be best friends." "I know. Can't you forgive her?" That question hurt more than anything else. Not because I didn't know the answer, because part of me wished I could. Life would be easier. Family dinners would be easier. Christmas would be easier. Everything would be easier. But forgiveness and accountability aren't the same thing, and Madison wanted forgiveness without accountability. "Grandma," I said gently. I tried to handle this quietly. "Silence." She sued me. More silence. She lied. Another silence. She tried to make me pay for her mistake. "Grandma, Sahil. Alone." Tired. Sigh. "I just want everyone together again." "So do I? Then why can't this stop?" I stared out my apartment window. At the empty parking space where my Honda used to sit. At the dent in the doorframe from Madison's kick. At the stack of legal documents on my table. Because I'm not the one keeping it going. Grandma didn't answer. When the call ended, I sat alone for a long time. The guilt almost worked. Almost. Then I remembered every lie, every accusation, every attempt to shift responsibility, and the guilt disappeared. A few days later, Daniel called. His voice carried a different energy. "Excitement. Grace." "What?" "We got something." My heart started racing. What happened? The district attorney's office reviewed the referral. I sat up, and they aren't promising charges, but they're interested. For the first time, genuine fear entered Madison's world. Not family drama, not civil court, not arguments, real consequences. The possibility of fraud being formally investigated. The possibility that someone outside the family might finally look at her actions and say, "No, you don't get to lie your way out of this." That news reached Madison quickly, because 2 days later, she attempted one final act of desperation, and it would become the biggest mistake she made before trial. 2 days after learning that the fraud referral was being reviewed, Madison tried one last desperate move. It happened on a rainy Thursday evening. I had just gotten home from work when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I ignored those. Something told me not to. I answered, "Hello." At first, there was only breathing. Then Madison spoke, "Grace." Her voice sounded different. Not angry, not confident, almost frightened. "What do you want? We need to fix this." I stared out the window, at the rain sliding down the glass. There is no "we" anymore. "Madison. You know what I mean?" "No, I really don't." She hesitated. Then came the offer. "If I drop everything, will you?" I laughed softly. "You already offered that. This is different." "How?" "I'll tell everyone I was wrong." That got my attention. Not because I believed her, because Madison had never admitted fault in her life. "What exactly would you tell them?" Another pause. "That I made mistakes?" Mistakes, not lies, not fraud. Not reckless driving. Mistakes. The choice of words told me everything. You still don't get it. What? You think this is about saving face? It's not. No. I felt years of frustration rising to the surface. This is about truth. Silence. This is about the fact that you crashed my car while texting and speeding. Silence. This is about you trying to make me pay for it. More silence. Then her voice hardened. Fine. There she was. The real Madison. The one hiding beneath all the tears. You could have helped me. I did help you. What? I loaned you my car. She hung up. That was the last direct conversation we ever had before trial. The trial began 3 weeks later. Bench trial. No jure. Just a judge. 2 attorneys. 2 cousins. And a mountain of evidence. Walking into the courthouse that morning felt surreal. I had spent months living inside this conflict. Months answering questions. Months collecting records. Months defending myself against lies. Now everything would finally be decided. Madison sat at the opposite table. For the first time, she looked smaller. Not physically, emotionally. The confidence that once filled every room had vanished. The trial lasted only 2 days. Day 1, focused on evidence. The accident reconstruction expert testified first. His presentation was devastating. He explained vehicle speed, braking distance, road conditions, reaction time, physics, everything. The conclusion never changed. The accident occurred because the driver was distracted and speeding, not because the brakes failed. Then came the dashcam footage. The judge watched every second. The highway, the speed, the texting, the panic, the crash. The courtroom remained silent. No dramatic objections. No shocking revelations. Just undeniable reality playing on a screen. Next came the maintenance records. Every oil change, every inspection, every repair, every receipt. Months of documentation proving I had maintained the vehicle responsibly. Then came the phone records. Text messages sent minutes before impact. Timestamps. Carrier verification. Objective evidence. The kind of evidence that doesn't forget. The kind that doesn't change its story. Madison's attorney tried to fight back, but the defense theory sounded weaker every time it was repeated. Maybe the brakes failed temporarily. Maybe the defect disappeared afterward. Maybe the experts missed something. Maybe. The judge looked increasingly unconvinced. Day 2 belonged to Madison. And unfortunately for her, that was the problem. She insisted on testifying. Daniel had predicted she would. She thinks she can talk her way out. Can she? No. The moment she took the stand, the outcome felt inevitable. At first, she repeated the same story she had been telling for months. The brakes felt strange. She wasn't speeding that much. She wasn't really texting. The accident wasn't her fault. Then, Daniel stood for cross-examination. The atmosphere changed immediately. His voice remained calm, polite, controlled, which somehow made every question hit harder. Miss Carter, you testified that the brakes felt unusual. Yes. Did you contact the vehicle owner? No. Did you pull over? No. Did you seek mechanical assistance? No. Did you reduce your speed? Silence. No. Daniel nodded. So your testimony is that you believed the brakes might be defective and continued driving at 87 miles per hour. Madison shifted in her chair. I didn't know I was going that fast. Daniel displayed the GPS records, 87 miles per hour. Silence. Yes. He displayed the phone records. You also sent text messages while driving. A couple? A couple. The words hung in the air. Even Madison seemed to realize how ridiculous they sounded. Daniel took another step forward. Miss Carter, Were you paying attention to the road? I thought I was. You thought you were. Silence. No further questions. The judge took the matter under advisement. 24 hours later, everyone returned for the ruling. I barely slept the night before. Not because I doubted the evidence, because I wanted it over. I wanted my life back. The courtroom felt unusually quiet. The judge reviewed several pages of notes before speaking. Then came the ruling. First, Madison's lawsuit against me was dismissed with prejudice. The court found no evidence whatsoever supporting her brake failure theory. Second, my countersuit was granted in full. The judge ruled that Madison's negligent operation of the vehicle directly caused the loss. Third, the court awarded damages, $18,500 for the value of my destroyed Honda Accord, $17,200 in legal fees. Total judgment, $35,700. I closed my eyes, not because I was celebrating, because after months of tension, I could finally breathe. Then came the part nobody expected. The judge specifically addressed credibility. He stated that Madison's testimony had repeatedly conflicted with objective evidence. He noted that her explanations changed throughout the litigation, and he emphasized that the physical evidence overwhelmingly contradicted her claims. In legal language, it was devastating. In plain English, the judge was saying, I don't believe her. Afterward, the insurance company obtained its own judgment through a separate proceeding. Another $18,500. Another loss for Madison. As for the fraud referral, prosecutors ultimately declined criminal charges. Not because they believed her, because the case wasn't large enough to justify the resources. Still, they issued a formal warning. Future fraudulent claims would be aggressively prosecuted. That warning remained attached to her insurance history. The consequences piled up quickly. Insurance premiums skyrocketed. Credit damage followed. Financing became difficult. Job applications became awkward. Everywhere she went, the aftermath followed. The family never fully recovered. Aunt Paula still blamed me. In her version of reality, I had destroyed her daughter's future. My mother gradually accepted the truth. Not overnight, but eventually, even Grandma stopped asking me to fix things. I think she finally realized there was nothing left for me to fix. The person who broke everything wasn't me. It never had been. 2 months after the trial ended, Madison sent one final message. I almost deleted it unread. Instead, I opened it. It said, I know you won. Congratulations. I hope you're happy, knowing you ruined my life over a car. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed one response. One, and only one. I didn't ruin your life. You crashed my car while texting and speeding. Then you lied about it and tried to make me pay for it. Every consequence you're facing came from your own choices. I simply refused to become your victim. She never replied. A month later, I bought another vehicle, a certified pre-owned 2022 Honda Civic, reliable, practical, exactly the kind of car I like. The first thing I installed was a Dashcam, same model, front-facing and interior-facing. Cloud backup. Some lessons are worth keeping forever. People sometimes ask whether I regret lending Madison my car. Honestly, no. I regret what happened. I regret losing a cousin. I regret what it did to the family. But I don't regret learning the truth. Because, before the accident, I believed Madison was simply irresponsible, a little reckless, a little immature. Deep down, I thought she was still a good person. The lawsuit showed me something different. When faced with consequences, she chose deception. When confronted with evidence, she chose denial. When given opportunities to take responsibility, she chose blame. That wasn't my fault. That was her character. The judgment money was never the real victory. Most of it would take years to collect, maybe decades. The real victory was simpler. Truth won. Accountability won. And for the first time in my life, I refused to let family pressure convince me to sacrifice myself for someone else's mistakes. Madison thought I would fold. She thought guilt would work. She thought family loyalty would silence me. She was wrong. And all because of a little camera attached to a windshield that captured exactly what happened when the truth and a lie collided at 87 miles per hour.